piece of
Look, Mom, I'm failing. Look, Mom, I'm failing. Look, Mom, I'm failing. Hurry up and watch me fall.
Okay, here we go. How's it going, everyone? Sam McNeil here, coming to you with a live episode of Look, Mum, I'm Failing. We're at Confex in London. Big shout out to Stuart Mitchell and the Catch the Mice crew. We're doing this live on the stand. I'm really excited about this interview. I've got Bonnie May, founder and director of Global Infusion Group. We'll be talking all things about success, failure, setbacks, and the ways to endure and hopefully enjoy the process of failure. Let's get into it. Bonnie, thank you for doing this.
You're very welcome.
This is going to be fun. We've just met.
We have.
Literally, I saw you were speaking here. A slot opened up to speak to an event leader and a business owner, and I saw your credentials, and I was like, you are a perfect guest. So thank you for doing this last minute. Now, before we talk about is it gig? Do you call it gig or G?
Do, yeah.
So Global Infusion Group, before we talk about that, I want to know a little bit about you previous to that. And firstly, I'd like to know, what was the first ever concert you attended?
Oh, so the very first concert I attended, I've only went to one concert before I actually joined and started working in the music industry, and that was Kajagoogoo at Chippenham in Gold Diggers, and I was about 15.
There you go. Good answer. So take me to the period before you start gig. What are you doing? What was the motivation to create this sort of powerhouse group?
So, in actual fact, it was actually my late husband. He actually founded it, and I joined him.
You've taken over.
So he started the business in 1984.
Wow.
And I joined him in 1989.
Wow.
So
okay.
yeah, so
and
it had already kicked off.
I see.
In the very first place, and it was completely born out of the music business. So we've got absolute rock and roll roots. He was in a band, and a lot of his friends were in the music industry, and they sort of said in those days when touring happened, it was mostly kind of stopping at service stations along the way, and there was no kind of feeding facility for those bands on the road. And they suggested that that's something that maybe could be an industry of the future, and they weren't far wrong, absolutely. Oh. And then he set it up in 1984 with his first tours on the road with Iron Maiden, Joe Jackson,
oh my goodness,
Sister Sledge. So
wow.
some real iconic, and all of those people we are still working with now, which is amazing.
Iron Maiden's doing their own festival, aren't they?
They are. They're at Nebworth, which we're already confirmed for this year. So yeah, absolutely.
How amazing!
Yeah.
And so, what were you doing before you got involved in the company?
So I was only 19 when I first joined the business.
I was going to say.
Yeah, thank you. So my family are all from the West Country. And I was destined to go to university, to completely change my mind at the very last minute, and was working in my local pub, which I've been doing for the last sort of, summers, Christmas, holidays and things. And this couple came in the pub who'd been on a skiing holiday. So bearing in mind, this is a long time ago, and they'd been staying in a chalet, which I didn't even know what that was then. And they said that they'd got this chalet girl that was cooking and looking after, and they said, Bonnie, that we could absolutely see this has got a job for you. And this was on the Sunday lunchtime. I called the company on the Monday, had an interview on the Wednesday, and was flying out to Switzerland on the Saturday. And whilst I was in Switzerland with a bunch of other girls, all like-minded kind of people, one of the girls there had done a previous summer with Eat to the Beat. And when the winter season came to an end, she said, well, let's go and ring Tony Lawrenson, who owned the company. And that's what we did.
That was
it. And I did a couple of trial days with them. And then I got a phone call at very last minute. I was living in London to say, what are you doing for the next 2.5 weeks? And how far are you from Hammersmith, Odeon? And I said, not very far, and nothing. He said, if you can get to Hammersmith in the next hour, you can go on tour with the Temptations. And that was it.
I am so glad we're having this conversation. I knew none of this, so this is so fortuitous. And that was the call from your then-to-be husband?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, love it. Okay, now please paint the picture, shameless plug, explain the group. There's 4 companies within it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk us through
so
it.
Eat to the Beat came first, and that absolutely, we've all got rock and roll roots. That's where we're from.
Let's just explain what that is very briefly to the listener.
Eat to the Beat is a catering company, and we go on tour with bands all over the world. So, we've just done, 23 years with Coldplay, which has been amazing.
Unbelievable.
Iron Maiden, clients of ours for 42 years, and absolutely we're looking forward to looking after them at Nebworth.
That looks good.
Yeah, and, from the Rolling Stones, we've done 32 years at Glastonbury, 29 years this year at BST, at Hyde Park, So some really fantastic credentials from the music business.
I love that came out of solving a problem.
Yes.
That was, like you said, people are they're on the freeway eating at a gas station and like, hey, we can do better than this. I love that. Okay,
Exactly.
so that's that one. And do you do it for the festival attendees, or is it just the artists?
All backstage.
It's all backstage.
So, yeah,
Understood.
absolutely. All artists,
Understood.
broadcast, media. So everything
Okay.
behind the scenes
Beautiful.
that we do
Oh,
from an
God.
Eat to the Beat point of view.
Okay, I'm looking forward to some stories backstage. And then talk us through the other ones.
Yeah, so, I mean, out of the music business and as our life started to go on, it is then very clear that there is a whole corporate world out there. And all those years ago, a name seemed to carry a lot more value in different ways than a brand name does now. So, as Eat to the Beat, we were like, if we are going to work in a corporate environment, HSBC Bank or Lloyds, the banks and that kind of grown-up world probably wouldn't be calling a company called Eat to the Beat. Well, so we're really capable of doing that.
True.
So we then knew that we needed to have a brand that basically was geared up towards looking after the corporates and that front-facing, kind of very much client-facing world, which we then did. At that time, we called it Chevalier. It sounded really posh. I mean, bearing in mind, it's still 35 years ago.
Love it.
So, knight on horse, kind of visual.
Yep.
But then as we then grew and this all took off, we then started to go into other markets, not just the UK and Europe. And Chevalier doesn't transfer very well in Asia because it's kind of horse catering. So obviously that we then had to change the name.
Understood.
And what we've ended up with is gig catering. For us, it looks after corporate and sport. Eat to the Beat, that does all behind the scenes, is our rock and roll and production routes. We have Bonnie May Food and Events, which is, we live in a really beautiful, our offices are in Hertfordshire, we all live up that direction, which is a great part of the world, and in the nicest possible way, quite an affluent part of the world. So that private wedding and party market, which kind of, again, you probably wouldn't ring a gig or an Eat to the Beat if you're wanting a wedding. So hence the reason we have a very personalised service there. And E2B Logistics, which is not catering, so that's event fulfillment.
Right.
So basically we look after other people's brands. So Red Bull is the best example of that. Red Bull's been a client of ours for 30 years. So if you see a Red Bull, a bar, a fridge, a tent, T-shirts, caps, all of that all lives in our warehouse.
I see.
And then when there's an event on, we will then mobilise that for Red Bull. They will activate it, and then it all comes back to us.
I see. So you're storing it for them,
Exactly
that's merchandise, theming, all
and
the...
some of their sort of product as well from a point-of-sale point of view.
Wow,
And fulfillment. So the office is like a little mini Amazon warehouse.
I would have to come check it out. So how many of them how many make up the team, or how many employees?
Okay, so we've got 92 full-time employees.
Oh my gosh.
Which is fantastic. A whole, right from obviously myself, a senior management team, right down to we have a big team on the warehouse floor as well. A lot of it's very operational, very hands-on, and then up to 400 or 500 freelancers that are somewhere in the world at any point in time.
That's incredible. Well, congratulations, because a company that makes it 10 years is doing good. 20 years, very impressive. You're at 35, 30... 42. Oh my gosh, so you started the year before I was born.
Oh God, thanks.
Okay, so I'm imagining it's live events, it's catering, it's big Glastonbury's backstage. Tell me about a time when something has just not gone to plan and how you dealt with that. I don't know, the food didn't show up, or the truck wasn't allowed in. Share a time where the world sort of caved in that moment for you.
I think we've never not done it. No. It's never not happened.
You've got it done.
And I think that's the industry as a whole. And if you spoke to anyone here today, we've all we've got the show must go on attitude. It might not be what you want or when you want it. No. But we have had some difficult times. Yeah, absolutely. And ordinarily, it's not, in the nicest possible way, it's very rarely down to us. So in fact, I can't even think of it exactly down to us. It has been exactly like you said. The truck hasn't got in, or there's been delays, and things like that.
Weather, I imagine, has played
exactly. The weather has a big contribution, but when there is going to be a weather factor. So, for example, we've just come back from Milan and Cortina doing the Winter Olympics, so the weather has a big impact on that. So when we know that there would be a weather situation, we always have like a contingency plan in place for that. But I think probably my kind of disastrous moment, I guess, or the moment that just I can
still think about.
I can still live in it. Yeah, probably as we went out in sort of September time in '97, which was the first Spice Girls show that they did in Istanbul. And so my understanding is that they went to kind of that part of the world then. So again, it was a long time ago, you know, social media wasn't as it is today. So it was the first live show, and the weather was beyond torrential. It was biblical. The rain, it was absolutely unbelievable. And so we were cooking for probably 300 plus people a day in a tent just outside the stadium in Istanbul, and the rain came and came and came, and the whole thing was looking back now, you know, firstly we all were dealt with cash. We carried so much cash around us, which was just puts the fear of God in me now. And even just going out there weren't supermarkets as we knew, as we know now. So I had to do all the shopping in markets, so I had to have security guards with me because I had so much cash on me, and I was
and a female, I imagine,
so, and I'm purchasing so much stuff, you know. And then after a couple of days, people will get wise that, you know, the nicest possible way, that girl with much redder hair than I've got now, then I would kind of stuck out a bit like a sore thumb. And then the rains came, and the rains came, and the rains came. And we got back and with all this shopping, and it's very difficult to hold loads of stock. So you can't have like 4 days worth of stock. There's not the facilities because we're in a completely temporary environment. So I've got all of the, kind of the lunch and the dinner and the breakfast. That's kind of how you set it up for that day, and it's all in piles. So I know that's all going to be made into that. That's all dressing room stuff. This is all that. And with this, the banks of the river that we were next to burst and swept everything away.
It does sound biblical.
Yeah,
like a Noah's Ark kind of thing.
And we were like racing up the street then to go and try and save as much as we could. Which we did, and then we had to then work out what we saved and what we hadn't saved, and then off I went shopping again. Sort of thing.
My
so that probably was, you know, we lived to tell the tale, and you know,
100%.
Thankfully, no one went hungry.
No one starved. Did the Spice Girls even know it happened? Probably not. Because that's a big lesson for listeners, especially people working in events. I think you touched on it, contingencies. Yeah. Really, if you don't have a contingency these days, if something might go wrong, it probably will. And I think it's a big one. It
is, and I think we're very much more accepting now that if things do go wrong, it's not the thing that's gone wrong, it's how you deal with it. Often, you know, I think the first and foremost, if there is a problem or an issue on site, is to let somebody know straight away. You know, none of us are magicians here, you know, and if something hasn't gone your way, and, you know, as I said, very often it's things which are out of our control. If there's a power problem, it's a water problem or weather problem, that's all way out of our control. And I think it's letting people or the right people are aware of that, and it's all about managing expectations. So if lunch is going to be 2 hours late, the minute you know it's going to be 2 hours late, you need to let somebody know, not a minute before you're serving it. You know, communication, and I think that, you know, if things go wrong, let the right people know, and then we can all manage it together.
Yeah, and I think you've made a good point as well. I think people, no matter how high the stakes are, we are all human.
Exactly.
And if you can communicate to the right person, this has gone wrong, here's what I'm doing to fix it.
Exactly.
Here's the update. Unless maybe they're not someone you want to work with again anyway, if they're going to respond in a negative way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of which, I'm not going to ask you to tell us who a nightmare artist was to work for, but on a positive note, who really is as kind behind the scenes when no one's watching as we think they are, as an artist or band?
Do you know? And I've been asked this a lot, and people, you know, and you know, rarely we work with people who are really difficult or unreasonable. That doesn't happen very often. The actual artists themselves are normally absolutely lovely. It's ordinarily the circle, people around them, you know, that can sometimes put things in your way.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Yeah, so on the whole, everyone we work with, and I've been really lucky over the years to work with some amazing people, and I've never really had any horrific difficulties. I did do the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which was their very first tour, when they went from sort of zero to hero.
Massive.
And that was, they were quite tricky to manage.
They were a punky kind of bunch, though.
Super punky.
Yeah.
A bit punkier than
But again, I'm sure lovely, but just probably a bit rough around the edges.
And it was their first, and this was actually even before the wall came down in Berlin, so this was the late 80s, you know, and they've gone massive, and we were working in East and West Germany, and there were lots of other things to navigate in and all around all of this, but they were quite, well, I think they were probably looking back again, they were young guys who went just through the roof in a very short amount of time.
Well, you mentioned Coldplay. I've got Coldplay tattoos on my back, lyrics. And they do come across as an act that are incredibly generous and kind with their time, and that very thankful to their crews.
Very much so.
So I hope that's real.
No,
Tell me it's
absolutely.
real.
Absolutely, and we've been with them, which is a really lovely story. You know, as people have changed along the way, I'm pretty sure this is 23 years we've had with them this year, and they really look after.
I love hearing that. It's giving me goosebumps.
No, it's great, and they're very conscious of their surroundings and the impact they have. You know, and unfortunately, we work in such a disposable environment. You know, we do come in and we turn the world upside down and off we go again, but they are very conscious about that.
They're very big on the sustainable, the dance floors that generate energy. I saw them in Glasgow. I've seen them 6 times. I'm a massive fan, but I was just like hoping that they were as kind as they come across.
Yes, they are.
That's very good. Now, final couple of questions. You've 90 or so employees, hundreds of freelancers, 4 different businesses. How do you, day to day, make sure they're all running at the best of their ability without micromanaging and without killing yourself?
Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Surround yourself with amazing people.
Yeah. So you got a great team of people.
Fantastic team.
Good.
Yeah, who've been with us a very long time. A lot of them have been, you know, much as myself, have been, you know, started at the bottom and worked their way up. You know, and I think. You know, and I think we're all very conscious about knowing what we can do and equally what we can't do. You know, you don't need 10 of me, I don't need 10 of you, I don't need 10 of you. So making sure there's a really complementary blend to the team, you know, and if you can't do something, and a lot of it is attitude, it's kind of what is people wanting to be there.
Yeah.
We can learn the skills, we can teach the skills, but it's wanting people.
I love that.
And particularly with an industry like the event industry, it's a vocation rather than a job. You know, it doesn't start at 9 and finish at 5. You know, all our phones are going up, you know, and that's never going to change. And I can't promise to anyone who joins us in the business that it's going to be any different than that. So it's a world you want to embark on and live and breathe. And if that's not for you, it's not the right industry.
I can see that you just still live and breathe it and have that hunger. And it's really interesting. I think it's going to be an interesting time for events because, to your point, there's no off switch, there's no hours, and we're moving into a time where, especially younger people, they want to work a job that this is when I come in, I do my role, I leave. That doesn't work in events. I hate to say it, and I don't want to be saying that we should be working people to the bone either, but you've got to love it and be prepared to work crazy hours.
I think we probably don't work the crazy hours now that we used to all those years ago. I don't think that will ever change, but I think we're much more conscious about trying to get that work-life balance into this generation. And this generation are driving us probably. The younger generation drive us to be having these conversations, not us at all. I think my generation should probably still be going hammer and tongs.
We do whatever we were told to do by the boss.
Exactly that. So I think there is a change, which is definitely happening, and we have to embrace it.
You've got to navigate that.
But we're not in a 9 till 5 place.
They're not, and especially when you're doing these crazy tours and the bands want to eat at all kinds of hours, I imagine, and the setup. It's super impressive. Final question. This podcast is for people who want to start their own business or they want to become a full-time creative musician. So 2 different worlds, but I think very similar with the stuff we just talked about. So not for someone who's thinking about it, for someone who's made the leap and has started their own business, or they've tried to make it as a professional musician or songwriter, and they're in that early stage and they're struggling a bit and they're getting the knockbacks and they're not seeing the fruits of their labour coming to them yet. What do you say to those people that are stuck in it right now going, have I made the right decision?
I think this is hearts and minds stuff, isn't it? You know, I wear my heart on my sleeve and I'm driven by my, you know, rightly or wrongly. I think if your gut says it's right and you live and you believe in it, you've just got to keep going. And there will be absolute knockbacks. 100%. And I think the other thing is just to reach out. There are a load of amazing people in our industry.
I agree.
And particularly, you know, the flip side of the younger generation, but the older generation like myself, who have had such an amazing time in their professional career, that reach out to somebody, find yourself a mentor, talk to somebody. The chances are, if you're feeling it and you've been through it, that there's somebody like me who's been through it as well.
Been through it a million times.
I would be delighted if someone picked up me and said, "If you've got an hour for a
that's
call."
Awesome.
And I'm sure lots of my friends and my colleagues in the business would feel the same. So I think you are going to get knockbacks. You are going to feel like this at times. But jump on the phone or just have a look around and talk to somebody. Because, we've all been there.
It's
it's
true.
It's worth the hard work.
Yeah, and no problem, almost no problem in the world hasn't been experienced by someone else.
Exactly.
It's someone can go and just verbalising it and going, oh, you've been there.
And we even say it to the guys in the office, you know, if something's gone wrong, come and talk to me let me be the first to help you, not the last to know. I said, because if
No.
I'm the first to help you, we're going to get out of this hole damn sight quicker than if I'm the last to know.
I've loved this chat. We're going to hold you to it. Bonnie May on LinkedIn. By the way, that should be an artist name. Reminds me of Bonnie Raitt. One of my favourite songwriters. It's been an absolute pleasure. Connect with her, follow her on LinkedIn. If you're a young, aspiring business owner, hit her up for some support or for some advice. I want to thank the legends at Catch the Mice. Stuart, wherever you are, thank you for making this happen. Thank you, Confex. I'm Sam. This has been Look Mum, I'm Failing, powered by Song Division. Connect your people. Communicate big ideas through songwriting experiences anywhere in the world. That's my shameless plug. Bye for now.
1, 2, 3, 4. You piece of shit. Look, Mom, I'm failing. Look, Mom, I'm failing. Look, Mom, I'm failing. Hurry up and watch me fall.